Hey guys, Redney here. Let's go ahead and talk about why I'm done streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Now, if you're new to my channel, let me go ahead and contextualize my position and where I'm coming from on this. Master Duel was the best thing to ever happen to my YouTube channel, and overall to my success as a live streamer and content creator. I started off making guides, and I leveraged the viewership and success of those guides in order to branch out into what I really enjoy doing, which is to live stream. And I was able to make those guides because I have, at the very least, a competent level of knowledge about Yu-Gi-Oh! I played a lot of it back in 2014 at a level that at least saw me and my group of friends regularly attend locals and regional events for about a year or two. I quit the game at the time, since the cost was high and my friends grew out of it, only to find myself in 2022, upon Master Duel's release, making a guide for a deck that I genuinely enjoyed learning and playing, which is Sky Strikers. I've been streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel ever since for the better part of 2 years now, and I'm absolutely sick of it. So this video is not only going to be a post-mortem and explanation to my community on why I'm no longer going to stream their favorite game, but I'm going to go ahead and spice it up a bit for anyone just peeping their head in and explain to you why I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is the worst card game out there. To first explain why Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel sucks, we have to first talk about the core issue, which is, why does Yu-Gi-Oh! Suck? And why Master Duel, with all of its opportunity and potential to remedy it, fails to do so. Now, again, I'm not a casual level player, like Papa Mutt over here, simply trying to get a rise out of the community as someone with a casual level of experience with the game. I know how this game works. I play it a lot, and my brand of content largely revolves around playing Master Duel in, at the very least, a competent level. Competent enough to be able to reach Master 1 with meta and rogue decks like Sky Strikers whenever I'd like. So my grievances with the game is going to be coming from someone who has played it avidly for a good while now, and only has a ton of reasons to continue to do so. The first reason why I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the worst card game out there is because of its overabundance of mechanics. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of mechanics. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has 10 different summoning mechanics, 6 different special summoning mechanics, 10 different major card types, 9 different subtypes for spells and traps, 6 different abilities for monsters that pretty much act as subtypes for monsters, and then finally you have monster tokens and trap monsters that are treated differently from other monster types in the game, and even among the trap monsters, that further breaks down into 2 subtypes where you have cards like Shade Brigandine, being a trap monster that is not treated as a trap, and Altergeist Emulet that has reminder text letting you know that it is still a trap. You can only imagine then how all of these different permutations and combinations of types and subtypes interact differently between Yu-Gi-Oh!'s 6 different turn phases and all of its open game states that lie in between. On top of all these super and subtypes of cards, there is a shameless bias for cards with more and more text that has only grown over the years. This creates a lot of bloat and complex interactions that absolutely everyone has run into problems with at least once in the past. Yes, everyone. Contrary to what you might think, this overabundance of mechanics is not only a new player problem, but it makes the game incredibly difficult to play and judge. Even pro players like Pack TCG, a 2-time Yu-Gi-Oh! Champion and consistent top placer at official Konami events, was accused of cheating by the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community at a major Yu-Gi-Oh! Event just yesterday, from the time I'm recording this, for making a misplay that was only later caught by the official judges. Just think about that for a second. It wasn't just the pro players sitting across from each other who were unable to catch the misplay as it happened, but the official judges as well. The misplay, by the way, was illegal. Pac was issued a warning since it was caught late, which enough people were upset enough about to compel him to try and explain himself in a tweet. Whether or not he was cheating doesn't matter. I doubt he was, since he has so much at stake if he were ever caught cheating. But if Yu-Gi-Oh! Is too over convoluted for even the top top level of pro players and judges to play and judge properly, then it says a lot about the experience for everyone else further down the food chain. The bloat in Yu-Gi-Oh's mechanics often causes confusion, which in turn leads to a frustrating gameplay experience for many people, including me. Not only does Yu-Gi-Oh have too many mechanics, but it also has horrible card design that is a direct result of an abuse of power creep. For instance, trap cards are practically irrelevant in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a really good video that explains this by Key Yu-Gi-Oh! That I can refer you to, but basically because trap cards are cards that can only be used after it has been set for one turn on your turn, they are too slow. The only trap cards you see being played are either archetype-specific trap cards that do so much for that particular archetype, or cards that literally change how trap cards work, like Infinite Impermanence, which is a trap card that negates monster effects and can be activated from your hand if you control no other cards on the field, bypassing a trap card's restriction and thus its identity entirely. And if it's not those trap cards that's being played, then the trap cards are likely only being used by specific archetypes like Labyrinth or Traptrix, who are designed with mechanics that explicitly enhance a trap card's performance. Labyrinth Coup Clock, for example, allows you to activate a normal trap card the turn it was set, as opposed to waiting a turn, making it practically a spell card. And I wanted to start with this example because trap cards being functionally outdated is a symptom of Yu-Gi-Oh's horrible card design, which comes from Konami's over-reliance and abuse of power creep in order to sell cards. The reason why trap cards are outdated is because modern Yu-Gi-Oh is too fast. There is no mana, like in Magic or Hearthstone, that limits your options. The only thing that limits your play in Yu-Gi-Oh are three things: your one normal summon, the quantity and quality of the cards in your hand, as well as the number of zones available on the field. All of these things are easily manageable and circumvented by modern Yu-Gi-Oh card design. Your one normal summon hardly dictates how many monsters that you can normal summon. There are so many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that draws you more cards to supply you with quantity and either special summon, search, or dig for a specific card in your deck to make up for the quality. There are too many zones for it as a limitation to matter. Multiple monsters combine with each other into a single form, with special summoning mechanics like Exceed Summon, Fusion Summon, or Synchro Summoning, in order to make powerful boss monsters that exist in an extra deck. A deck that exists entirely separate from the main deck that you draw from. This gives you full access to a suite of boss monsters that your deck, assuming it was built by anyone with a competent level of knowledge in this game, likely it is because you probably net decked your deck, should have no problem tapping into. This overall lack of limitation dilutes any sort of variance that is present in practically every other card game, and what it leads to are an overabundance of games that feel very similar to each other. Why would your matchup against a dominant archetype like Pirelli feel any different game by game if Pirelli has 3 cards that can search for 12 cards that can perform the same function of special summoning one of 6 monsters in your deck that either dig for those 12 cards or search for the 3 cards that searches for one of those aforementioned 12? I'll save you the trouble of parsing that confusing sentence. That is 21 cards in a maximum deck size of 40 that can pretty much search for itself, meaning over half the cards in a Pirelli deck is a super consistent engine of destruction that preys upon everything else. Ask anyone that plays card games at a somewhat competent level and they will tell you the very same thing. This is ridiculous. Consistency is power, and consistency is king in card games. This leaves the only traces of variance for top performing decks to be practically restricted behind the initial coin flip that determines who goes first and who goes second, because whoever goes first is able to do their crazy combo setup, and whoever goes second has to respond. That all said, this doesn't leave the second turn player at a disadvantage technically, because this too is balanced by good old power creep, and goes back to why trap cards are outdated. A good deck will have enough interruption that can be played from the hand, or enough cards that totally invalidate the other player's turn. Ash Blossom will flat out stop effects that search or special summon from the deck. Kaijus are monsters that summon on your opponent's side of the field by tributing your opponent's monsters, completely bypassing any destruction or targeting immunity. Nibiru, the primal being, is a meteor that can be summoned from the hand and obliterates the entire field on your opponent's turn if the opponent was dumb enough to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And perform 5 or more summons. Why would anyone wait a turn and rely on trap cards when these cards, ironically named as hand traps, are able to respond to and invalidate any board as soon as the game begins? Why wouldn't you play cards that invalidate your opponent's entire setup, like Dark Ruler No More, a spell card that not only wipes all the card text and effects from your opponent's monsters, rendering them useless, but explicitly states that it cannot be responded to by the most conventional means. Because of Yu-Gi-Oh's card design, a lot of its gameplay loops thus feel very binary. Did you win the coin flip or not? Did you open your combo play or not? Did you open enough interruption or cards that invalidate your opponent's turn or not? And all of this is decided within the first couple turns of the game, meaning nobody has time to set trap cards and play them, and also that there are very rarely any complex board states. Why would there be any sort of complexity when there are so many cards like Evenly Matched and Dark Ruler No More, which have the potential to pacify the opponent's entire board? Yu-Gi-Oh's card design dictates the pacing of the game, with its lack of resource mechanics, its reliance of convoluted effects, and the abundance of solutions that reduce monsters and entire boards to paperweights and dust. It places so much emphasis and importance within the first couple of turns. You're never plotting out damage over a sequence of turns, and you're never setting up an elaborate plan over any sort of duration. There is no point in thinking about turns 4 and on when everything that matters is right in front of you. This means there is no sense of tempo, there are no in-game tactics, and there is no long-term strategy. Everything happens at a breakneck pace, and so many things are inherently unfair by being uninteractable, which reduces the number of meaningful decisions you make in a game. The final thing I will say that bothers me the most about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is its lack of flavor. And I know that sounds weird if you don't come from card games, but let me explain. In Magic the Gathering, you, the player, are a planeswalker, an entity that can travel between separate universes with ease. You tap into naturally occurring ley lines that produce magical energy in the form of mana in order to cast spells and basically conduct wizard battle with your nerdy friends. The spells you cast come from a mental library, which in-game is your deck of cards. This explains why every card, other than lands, in Magic is considered a spell, and thus can be counterspelled. Even creature cards are spells that summon creatures into battle. This background provides a lot of context to the thematic design of cards. Thoughtseize is a card that discards any card from your opponent's hand, but thematically, you are reading the conscious mind of the enemy player and stealing their thoughts away. Gingerbrute is a small gingerbread cookie given life, so he's typed as a food golem. Given his size, he has small stats and has haste, expressing his ability to fit into tight spaces and move quickly. And when you're done using him, you can activate its third ability, which says to sacrifice Gingerbrute in order to give you 3 life, which implies that you ate him. This continues in Sir Ginger, who can also be eaten. Dragons, barring exceptions, all have flying in their card text and usually have a 4/4 or 5/5 stat line, and if they don't have those things, often they will have something thematic to explain it. This kind of flavor exists in abundance in Magic and many other card games. It's very clear that it is a conscious design decision, and it basically doesn't exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is almost purely mechanical in contrast. Why can Kashtira Fenrir search for any Kashtira monster, including itself, which most cards that search for cards are unable to do? What about Purely Happiness tells you that it is more adept at fetching any sort of Purely card from your deck after attacking, or that it can have the attack of a monster on the field after doing so? Why can Bishul Magnamut can search for any dragon monster and none of his sibling cards can? Flavor isn't totally non-existent in Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, and Magic isn't without stale cards, but in Yu-Gi-Oh, flavor is clearly playing third or fourth fiddle. And it makes sense why. Yu-Gi-Oh is plagued with a gross amount of power creep. Good cards need to do a lot of things, and how can you express all of this card text succinctly in just one art piece? Magic the Gathering cards, in contrast, can remain relatively simple in design because power creep isn't nearly as present thanks to its standard rotating format. A simple design is more easily conveyed through a single art piece, and thus Magic generally has much more powerfully expressive card art. All of this is why I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Sucks. Now, clearly everything here and everything else I'm about to say is based purely on preference and my opinion. I mean, what else would it be? Everyone who continues to play the game clearly doesn't place as much importance or stock on these things as I do, and that's completely fine. I am only explaining my position and why I favor other card games vastly more than Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic the Gathering has powerful and succinct expression in its cards, and I like the pacing of its limited formats. Lorcana has great original art and turns the competitive TCG paradigm on its head by making a resource building game as opposed to a game that is focused on destroying the other player. Flesh and Blood is slowly overtaking all of them in my list of preference thanks to its flavorful card and game design, which revolves entirely around fantasy RPG classes and their equipment. I can go on and on about how other card games are so much better in my opinion, but I'll save it for another video. Let's go ahead and instead talk about why Master Duel is the worst digital card game out there and why I will no longer stream it. Despite Yu-Gi-Oh's vast card pool and its successful community-driven formats, Master Duel has no accommodations for playing any desirable alternate game modes. Why I say desirable is because there are technically alternate formats, but nobody plays them, and there is no matchmaking for these formats outside of Team Battle, which, you guessed it, nobody plays. Now that that's out of the way, what about the community formats? Well, the most successful community formats by far include Edison and GOAT. Edison and Go formats are what is known as Time Wizard formats, meaning that they represent a format that existed sometime in Yu-Gi-Oh's rich history, including what cards were available to them at the time, how those cards worked, and which cards were forbidden or limited. GOAT format represents Yu-Gi-Oh! In April of 2005, and Edison represents Yu-Gi-Oh! In March of 2010. Edison is so popular that it was suggested to Raran, a Hearthstone content creator who originally wanted to give 10 hours and learn Yu-Gi-Oh! With Master Duel, then got so frustrated with the game that he quit early after 4. But what's the problem? If Edison is so good and only represents a previous format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history, why doesn't the community just play Edison in Master Duel? After all, Master Duel has all of the cards that Edison format uses since it's just using an older card pool. Well, the problem is that Edison and GOAT format literally cannot be played in Master Duel. Edison and GOAT format play with old Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, which are significantly different to the rules of modern-day Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, several key cards have been officially reworded and nerfed from since then. Since Master Duel cannot be customized in any which way regarding ban lists, rule changes, rulings, or nerfs, it's not only impractical to play those formats given the rarities of certain cards, but it is flat out impossible. Not only can you not play any desirable alternate game modes, but there's no effort from Konami to give you alternate formats to play. The only alternate formats that players can widely play are limited time events, and only a few of them were really successful. They exist mostly as a means for the player base to farm currency, as opposed to being something that was thoughtfully designed for players to have fun thinking about the game in a different way. Given how limited the time frame is to enjoy these alternate game modes and how inconsistent they are in terms of quality and fun, I think it is a total failing on Konami's part that the only way we can interact with Yu-Gi-Oh's rich and diverse card pool is through its horrible current standard format. Now, we can't get away from talking about the elephant in the room, and that is Max C. Max C is by far the most poorly designed card to exist. The only thing you need to know about Max C is in its effect, which reads, during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a single or multiple monsters, immediately draw one card. You can only use one Max C per turn. This one card, which has existed throughout the entirety of Master Duel, single-handedly ruins the entire game, and its presence is felt in every single game. If you don't understand, let me explain. Max C punishes your opponent for playing Yu-Gi-Oh! We've already gone over how fast Yu-Gi-Oh is and how everything is determined within the first 2 turns. Almost any competent deck is going to special summon a lot, whether to set up a death maze on turn 1 or to handle the death maze on turn 2. This one card, therefore, is a counter to almost every playable deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, and the decks that aren't countered by this card were either eviscerated by Konami with their ban lists or are too slow or not nearly as consistent as the premier meta decks. How is it so effective? All you do is draw cards. Well, I'll refer you to this video, but let me go ahead and quickly explain myself. In a game where there is no mana and virtually nothing to limit your play other than the quantity and quality of cards in your hand, Max C provides an overwhelming advantage to its player. You don't need quality cards if you have enough of them. Even drawing 1 or 2 cards in a game of Yu-Gi-Oh, where so many cards search, draw, and dig for other cards in your deck, is enough to give its player an incredible advantage. It doesn't matter if there exist strategies and decks to counter Max C. They are not nearly as consistent, nor are they as effective enough as this one card. You can disagree, but you're wrong. A whopping 93% of decks have Max C in their deck, and 98 times out of 100 at max 3 copies. The other card that I have in the image is Ash Blossom, which is the second most played card because it is, among other things, Max C's direct counter. Because Max C is so powerful, it generalizes deck building. Almost every deck has to pay the Max C tax by including at least 3 copies of Max C and 3 copies of Ash Blossom in their build, with other counter cards as a consideration. This will likely never change given that these cards are max rarity cards in Master Duel, and thus it is a tax that practically all players will pay with their precious points that they use to craft cards, which obviously translates to revenue for Konami. On top of this, Eastern players are largely tolerant and or supportive of Max C's inclusion in the game, as it has been a longtime staple in their exclusive physical format, the OCG, which is separate from the Universal Master Duel format and the Western players' physical TCG format. Given how necessary Max C is to all players and its support from the player base that Konami has a bias towards, Max C will very likely never be banned in Master Duel. And remember how I said how Yu-Gi-Oh feels so binary? Well, Master Duel is worse because of Max C. Now, on top of the coin flip minigame that you so desperately want to win in a best of 1 format, you also have a huge portion of all of your games practically invalidated by this single card. Whether it's you using Max C on your opponent and reaping an instant win, or your opponent unleashing it upon you, absolutely nobody is having fun. I can go on and on about Master Duel being bad, not just for me, but for casual players as well. Casual match is a joke. The fact that I can't set up a team battle in the lobby to have fun with friends is ridiculous. Not being able to implement a custom ban list for a lobby is dumb. And the fact that I can't enable a best of 3 option with side decking in a lobby is so mind-numbingly stupid. And it's all indicative of what I hate the most about Master Duel, which is Konami's cold and utterly detached relationship it shares with the Western community. The community cannot hold Konami accountable to anything. It has only shown indifference in the face of any complaints. Because Yu-Gi-Oh is so wildly different than any other card game and has a strong brand identity with its anime, Konami has no reasonable fear that its player base may dramatically change from poaching or as a consequence from their decisions. In fact, major decisions from their perspective only pose a risk to lose players. Banning Max C may please a lot of Western players, but how many new players will it create? How many Eastern players will they lose as a result of this decision? The trade-off is obvious. There's no reason for Konami to make any major changes when they are the sole kingpin that holds this specific brand of cardboard crack that its player base is so fervently loyal to. Konami has no ambition to make Yu-Gi-Oh appeal to a wider market because they know it's a horribly convoluted mess that's hard to teach, hard to watch, and that's literally why they made Rush Duel. Certain marketing moves, like their recent deck flexing series, gives me some hope for the future of the game, but the fact that it took a better part of 2 years for Konami to realize that Master Duel has the potential to appeal to a wider audience, and that it might be a really good idea for them to leverage their loyal and successful indie content creators to do that, it tells me that Konami is too slow to adapt, and that I can just go ahead and do myself a big favor of not playing the game until they decide to improve it, and so that's what I'll do. As a content creator, Master Duel was absolutely my biggest break. I've met one of my closest friends in this space strictly because of Master Duel. Every time I turn on a Master Duel stream at my regular time, I can reasonably expect anywhere between 60 to 150 people to hop in. I'm not sure if many people can relate to how gratifying it feels for someone like me, an indie content creator that loves streaming, to have that expectation be met on a consistent basis. The point is, I stand to lose a lot. You could argue that I would service myself a lot better if I could just stop my feelings of the game from affecting my desire to make content. But I can't. The reality is that I hate this game. And I hate more that I've convinced myself for so long that it's the only avenue that I have as a content creator. I've made guides for other games before that did very well, and I can do it again. I have made entertaining livestream content and shorts on this channel that did well, and I can do it again. It doesn't have to be for a game like Master Duel, and least of all does it have to be for a game that I actively hate. And if I can't do it again, then I would rather hang it up and call it quits. I'm done with lying to myself, and I'm done with streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. To my viewers and supporters, you know how it is. It's not you, it's me. I am very appreciative of all the people that decided to follow, subscribe, join my Discord, and or hop into any one of my live streams within the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm grateful to have met all the people that I did meet while interacting in this space. I hope that I can continue to interact and work with them if there is anything fun to do together in the future. I suspect that for a lot of those people, that this is where we will have to part ways. But if you are still interested in keeping up with me, I'm going to be happily pursuing long-form streaming on both YouTube and Twitch. So subscribe to this channel and follow me on there. I'm going to be exploring other strategy and card games similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! And find out where I best fit. So far, I've been really enjoying backpack battles. Hearthstone is coming up with its own tag duel game mode in 2-player battlegrounds. Marvel Snap is something I've been wanting to hop back into. Pokemon TCG might be worth looking into. Warcraft Rumble is a new game I just started playing that has been really fun lately. And Teamfight Tactics is coming out with a new set and it's looking to be very fun. There's a lot of different possibilities. If Master Duel does receive any major changes like banning Maxi or putting Engage at 3, maybe if they add the link for new Sky Striker card, I might check it out. That's fine, right? If there's new stuff to do, there's new content, it's fun. I can definitely see myself coming back and streaming it again. But as far as that goes, I don't think it'll ever wipe away my feelings of the game. And as far as how much I just don't really like the gameplay loop. I know this is going to be bad for my channel, right? I understand. But I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! And sticking with just Yu-Gi-Oh! Has put me more in a box than anything. And I need to put this out there because I don't want to be in the box. I don't want to be in the box anymore. Yeah. That's pretty much it. So yeah. If this is where we part ways, hey, I understand. It's been a good ride. And, I hope to see you again. But other than that, if you are sticking around, hey, thanks a lot. I hope to see more of you. And if this somehow breaks past the algorithm and this is the first time you see me, hey, I hope this is fun for you. But, yeah, I think I'm going to be good on that. Take care. Be safe. And I might see you on the next one. Peace.